Well, good afternoon and welcome to another session of Greek Orthodoxy 101. And this topic today is so heavy that I have to be seated just so that we can talk about it. But before I talk about that, I want to encourage everybody to continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I want to thank everybody for all the great questions. In fact, I have that list and we're going to be answering those questions in upcoming videos. We've got responses from all over the world, so we are truly now an international website. One of those questions that we received is about Pascal's wager. Now, for those of you that might not be familiar, Blaise Pascal was a 17th century statistician. He was a theologian and, well, let's say self-proclaimed theologian, let's put it that way, and mathematician. And so he developed what he called this idea of how to think about or potentially think about God, and I'm going to read that now. Pascal argues that a rational person should live as though God exists and seek to believe in God. If God does not actually exist, such a person will have only a finite loss. For example, some type of pleasure or luxury or happiness. Whereas he stands to receive infinite gain as represented by eternity in heaven and avoid the infinite losses, i.e. eternity in hell. The first part of it states that we should live as though God exists, and herein lies the dilemma. God in himself is an absolute. So application of probability theory here is going to be either a 1 or a 0. So it's not like we're playing blackjack and what are the probabilities that we're going to hit 17 or higher. In this case, what we have been called to do as Orthodox Christians is to believe that God, as the creator of everything, is an absolute and exists. The problem with Pascal's wager is that we turn God into something that we create. So is he a creation of ours? And if he is not a creation, then we can dismiss him, but we can still obtain some type of benefit from that. Why don't we call that a placebo effect? Meaning that if I do good, I feel good and I generate happiness. The placebo effect. But our Orthodox faith calls us now that we truly believe that God as the Creator exists. So whatever we seek out in doubt is to help us to become closer to God. The question is not, does God exist? Or let me put it this way. The question for the Orthodox is not, does God exist, and let us seek out to prove his existence. The question for the Orthodox is, we know that God exists, let us seek out what it is that God desires from us. And what that is, as John says in his gospel, love. In everything, love. Faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. Where that comes from, love, we as Orthodox believe is through the divine spark that is present in all of us. We don't show love for our fellow human beings out of a desire to avoid something or to gain something. We do it because we know that there is a God, and what God has placed in us is what he has already, infinite love. Now, as humans, we can't perfect that love, but we can seek to bring that love about, and so that we may be like him. Obviously, we cannot be him, but we seek to be like him. So the idea of Pascal's wager, which is let's do good because of the reward that we seek, is not an Orthodox ideal. We do it because this is who God is, and this is now who we as Orthodox are as we emulate God's absolute love. So now I can hear the rebuttal, and I say that because it was the same rebuttal that I had. So what if I'm somebody that's on the path, so I don't know if there's a God or not. So how am I then affected, or am I affected by this idea of Pascal's wager? And the answer to this question is no, because the Orthodox faith will always entertain that person who seeks out God. But what the Orthodox ask is that when you seek out God, you are seeking Him out as absolute love and not as a desire to gain something. So the seeking that you do is to seek and find who God is. The seeking is not to find a way that I can receive a reward in heaven and be spared the endless nothingness, which then gives my life no purpose. So there's nothing wrong in seeking God. That would be an agnostic. An agnostic is one who is not sure if there's a God. And so the Orthodox faith has no problem with that because they realize that person is, as I mentioned, on a journey. But the journey is not about my happiness. The journey is to answer the question, who is God? And that needs to be found out by the seeker. And when that answer comes to that seeker, as it did to me, I do not believe in God because of the anticipation of a reward. I believe in God because I recognize that divine spark in me, and that calls me now to have or to attempt to have that absolute love for mankind, because that reflects then what is the relationship between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.